I now give the floor to His Excellency Sokhonn Prak, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Cambodia.
Madame la Présidente.
Madam President, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, first of all, I would like warmly to congratulate Her Excellency Annalena Baerbock upon her election to the presidency of the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly. I would also like to congratulate His Excellency Philemon Yang for his stewardship of the 79th session. The Pact for the Future that was adopted during his mandate is fully relevant given the topic for this year, Better Together, 80 Years and More for Peace, Development and Human Rights. This illustrates the spirit of continuity and cooperation that underpins this august global body to remain a source of hope for all of humanity. This year's theme is not just a slogan. It solemnly reminds us that the UN's promise only remains when we act united, when we work to achieve solidarity between nations and peoples, and when we measure success not just in national terms, but in line of the common well-being of citizens of the world. 8 decades ago, after a devastating global war, nations large and small gathered together behind a unique vision. Peace, development and human dignity can only be guaranteed through collective action. Nevertheless, as we gather here to mark this important stage, the ideals of multilateralism are being put to the test. Geopolitical divisions have only got worse. Rivalries between major powers all too often hamper the Security Council's decisions. This leaves many crises throughout the world unresolved and puts millions of lives in danger. The world is now facing the harsh reality that might makes right, and that interdependence is no longer the cornerstone of peace, but rather a tool of threat and coercion. If we genuinely believe that we are better together, we must reinvigorate trust in multilateral institutions, invest in preventive diplomacy, and ensure that the UN is equipped, both politically and financially, to respond decisively and effectively to old and emerging challenges.
Madam President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to speak about peace and to do so from lived experience. For decades, war and genocide traumatized our people and destroyed our country. Dialogue and not war between two true statesmen, our late King Father, His Majesty Samdechព្រះ Norodom Sihanouk, and our former Prime Minister, Samdech Techo Hun Sen, both blessed with wisdom, willpower, and genuine patriotism, had engendered the peace process and national reconciliation. It is now well known that peace was finally achieved through the win-win policy of Samdech Techo Hun Sen that ended 30 years of conflict without a single bullet being fired. We remain forever grateful to the many countries and to the UN peacekeeping operation that have extended support to Cambodia throughout the peace process. Across our towns and villages, the word "we thank peace" are not mere decoration. They are a daily affirmation that peace in our nation's is our nation's most precious treasure. This peace allows us to rebuild from complete ruin. Before the pandemic, our economy achieved an average annual growth of around 7%, positioning Cambodia to graduate from least developed country status by 2029. Through this development, millions has been lifted out of poverty in the past decades. We are grateful for our partners who are supporting Cambodia towards smooth graduation through, among others, open and inclusive trade. Guided by our pentagonal strategy, Cambodia aligns its development agenda with the Sustainable Development Goals. We officially launched last year the roadmap to achieve the universal health coverage in Cambodia by 2035, and expanding access to quality education, ensuring that our youth are equipped for a changing world. Our women now hold leadership positions in government and private enterprises at unprecedented level, strengthening the fabric of our society. We are firmly committed to protecting and expanding the civic space and strengthening democratic governance, knowing that development and human rights are inseparable pillars of lasting peace. On climate action, one of humanity's greatest collective tests, Cambodia has submitted its third nationally determined contribution to the UNFCCC. Last June, we signed the agreement on biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction and already deposited our ratification instrument earlier this month. These steps reflect our belief that environmental stewardship is a global duty and a moral imperative. With complete peace at home, Cambodia has been able to offer our humble contribution to peace building and peacekeeping around the world. From a country once hosting UN peacekeeping mission, Cambodia has become a steadfast contributor to global security. Since 2006, we have deployed over 10,000 peacekeepers, more than 800 of them women, to 10 UN missions across the globe. We have protected civilians, clear landmines, and support rebuilding war-torn communities. We are currently an active member of the UN Peace Building Commission, helping nations emerging from conflict to build institutions and foster reconciliation. Madam President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Cambodia's transformation embodies the UNGA 80 theme, namely, countries once in need can now become providers of peace and stability for others. It is therefore deeply painful to inform this august assembly that the hard-won peace that we so profoundly cherish and wholeheartedly share around the world is today threatened in our own home, not by internal division like in the past, but border conflict with a neighbor. We are grateful that a ceasefire brokered by US President Donald Trump effectively halted armed clashes that has caused death, injury, and destruction, and the displacement of hundreds of thousands innocent civilians. Like Armenia and Azerbaijan, Cambodia has nominated President Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize for his crucial role in this important step to peace. However, the ceasefire remains very fragile, despite expressed commitment from both countries on the sincerity to strictly comply with the ceasefire terms, to rebuild trust and restore normalcy, and the positive outcome of following meetings hosted and coordinated by Malaysia, the ASEAN chair. But sincerity is only credible, and trust can only flourish when respect with both the letter and the spirit of the agreement matches with real action on the ground. Sadly, continued unilateral move to impose territorial sovereignty from our neighbor, using forces instead of agreed mechanism, unilateral maps instead of internationally recognized ones that were produced in accordance with treaties that bind the two countries, and countless other actions undermine this trust-building and peace effort. Of great concern is the forced eviction of Cambodian civilians and threat to use national law against them, and to evict hundreds more from the lands they have lived in for decades. Such way of territorial control on the segment of the border yet to be demarcated demonstrate a clear disregard, not only for the terms of the ceasefire, but also the mutual agreements on the settlement of border issues. In the process, Cambodia's sovereignty and territorial integrity are violated, and the rights and dignity of many Cambodians infringed. Cambodia has consistently and strictly observed the ceasefire, demonstrating good faith and full transparency in the implementation of its term. We have exercised the utmost restraint, even in the face of repeated incident and provocation. As recently as this morning, there was an unprovoked attack near a sensitive site, following an allegation that our force has opened fire first. We firmly reject such accusation. Our troops have not fired first, nor have they returned fire in retaliation to the provocation, underscoring our commitment to peace. Guided by the same spirit that ended our internal conflict near 3 decades ago, Cambodia reaffirms its call for dialogue and the peaceful settlement of all outstanding issues. We urge strict and sincere adherence to the agreed terms of the ceasefire, full respect for bilateral agreements, and observance of international law, including the Charter of both the United Nations and ASEAN. We earnestly seek the continued support and good offices of the ASEAN Chair and Member States, the Secretary General of the United Nations and relevant UN bodies, as well as leaders around the world, to help de-escalate tension, encourage a peaceful resolution, and prevent any further tragedy. Cambodia is a small nation focused on rebuilding our economy and improving the well-being of our people. We pose no threat to the sovereignty of any country. While we will always safeguard our independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity, the use of force will only remain a last resort. Cambodia will continue every effort to restore trust and normalcy, to promote harmonious coexistence and good neighborly relations, and to transform border areas into zones of peace, friendship, cooperation, and shared prosperity. Madam President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to honor the founder's vision and meet today's realities, the United Nations itself must adapt. Cambodia supports pragmatic, incremental reform that strengthen the UN effectiveness without undermining the Charter. We believe that key priorities include empowering preventive diplomacy and mediation, giving the UN more tools to diffuse crises before they erupt, strengthening the General Assembly, which is the most representative body, by giving its resolution greater follow-up capacity and moral weight, expanding non-permanent Security Council seat to better reflect today's multipolar world and enhance legitimacy of the Council, enhancing peacekeeping and border monitoring missions, especially in dispute areas, so that small states have equal access to mediation and protection. Complementary measures such as funding, technology, and gradual legal adjustment can turn broad reform principles into concrete progress. For countries like Cambodia, the UN greatest strength is not cohesive force, but its moral authority, legitimacy, and convening power, quality that can shield small nations and sustain peace. As we commemorate 80 years of the United Nations, let us honor the vision of its founders by choosing cooperation over confrontation, dialogue over division, and hope over despair. Cambodia stands ready to work to be better together with all member states, the UN system, and our partners worldwide to ensure that the decades ahead are defined by peace, sustainable development, and the unshakable dignity of every human being. I thank you.
I thank the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Cambodia,